Did you know King Bradley's Trustmaster reward, a eye patch, is actually a hat? Now, I know what you're thinking. Why isn't it an accessory? That's because equipping it actually raises your unit's evasion. Somehow. The developers realized if they made it an accessory, people like me would turn it into a joke. King Bradley was released as a Neovision-based unit in Japan, as he didn't actually exist prior to his arrival. However, in Globo, he certainly did exist, which is why he's now a Neovision Awaken unit. Nevertheless, some things still remain the same. His Trustmaster reward, a eye patch, is a hat that boosts evasion despite covering your unit's eye. It also boosts attack further while your unit's holding a sword. But come on, that's not as quirky. His Super Trustmaster reward is a sword that's also received some buffs. The attack isn't any more extraordinary, but it's received neo-passives. Alongside a 30% boost to attack and defense, there's also a 20% boost to evasion. Onto his active abilities. He's a physical attacker that chains a Stardust Ray. Deep Insight raises his attack by 300% and his physical accuracy by 200%. The majority of his next abilities here are interesting, but wholly outdated. The only one that's particularly noteworthy is Conductive Stab over here, as it can lower the enemy's lightning resistance by 120%. Ultimate Eye raises King Bradley's attack by 250%, lets him deal lightning damage, and lets him evade 3 attacks. Ouroboros of Wrath deals damage and lets King Bradley launch several counterattacks when your team takes physical damage. The only chance you have is to destroy me grants King Bradley a 50% general mitigation buff, reduces physical and magical damage from humans by 50%, and puts a provoke buff on him. Who Will Strike Me Down is a physical cover ability. It should be noted that the physical damage mitigation is actually fairly low, much lower than what you might be used to. Don't tell me that's all you got. Deals increased damage to break gauges with a sword. It's all meaningless, partially ignores the enemy's defense, and inflicts an 85% foe break. You miserable humans never give up, deals lightning damage at the cost of his health, and raises his lightning damage by 25%. There is no god in this world is absolute blasphemy. I have a picture of him right here. Passives. With his Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, he gains stats, a triple cast, more stats, and will activate counter abilities more often. He deals increased damage to humans and machines, has a small boost to his limit burst gauge fill rate, and a decent amount of innate evasion. He actually has a passive that automatically grants him a 50% physical mitigation buff once his HP drops below 50%. There's a lot of other abilities here, but they really just help him further so long as he's holding a sword, wearing clothes, and dual wielding. He also has a guts buff. Now, ready to go over his limit burst? Time to change forms. His Brave Shift is a true Brave Shift, which has no limitations whatsoever. Onto his active abilities. Most of them still chain with Stardust Ray. I Want Traitor Stop grants him Inhuman Killer and lets him evade up to 3 attacks. You still have much to learn about the world, can be used 3 times per battle. It removes all buffs from an enemy and hits them. Strike of War partially ignores the enemy's defense, and lowers their fire and lightning resistance by 120%. Hypersonic Blade shades of Oreo Ray and partially ignores the enemy's defense. Eye of Wrath Fire lets King Bradley deal fire damage. I'm not sure what makes it different from Eye of Wrath Lightning though. Ruthless Execution partially ignores the enemy's defense. Your leader has returned. Open the Gate can be used 4 times per battle. It raises his limit burst damage by 150%, cures any attack breaks, and grants him resistance to further attack breaks. Passives. With his Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, he gains a guts buff. He sacrifices his Machine Killer to further boost his Human Killer, and has a much greater boost to his limit burst gauge fill rate. Overall, he's a lot stronger in this form too, though he still prefers to dual wield. Onto his limit burst. It deals damage that partially ignores the enemy's defense. Let's rank Brave abilities. I'd raise one's Pure Instinct to survive to raise his attack. I Want Traitor Stop to raise that Human Killer, Strike of War to further raise its damage, and finally, the only chance you have is to destroy me unless you really plan to use him as an evasion tank. Time to make a damage rotation. I'll assume his Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward is equipped. On turn 1, cast Ultimate Eye, Conductive Stab, and you miserable humans never give up. On turn 2, activate his Brave Shift, cast Deep Insight and double cast Strike of War. On turn 3, cast Your Leader Has Returned, Open the Gate, Strike of War, and Ruthless Execution. On turn 4, triple cast Strike of War. On turn 5, use his Limit Burst. Then, just begin the rotation again. Truth be told, a lot of his damage is from his Brave Shift's Limit Burst, so you want to activate it as soon as you can, as often as you can. So how good is King Bradley? For a Neovision Awaken unit, his damage output can be pretty impressive. But if you're willing to sacrifice a bit of his damage, you can turn him into a pretty effective evasion tank. He has a nice bit of utility too, with some effective breaks, buff dispels, and a good amount of counters. His true Brave Shift also aids him in that regard, turning him to a far more cohesive unit compared to, say, Gladiolus. However, if you do wish to play that way, keep his equipment setup in mind as you crawl your way to 100% evasion, and keep in mind that his actual damage mitigation isn't as high as other physical tanks. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Comment below if you plan to summon King Bradley. On a side note, it doesn't really seem like his kit has been significantly altered from his Japanese counterpart. It's not too surprising that they'd copied the Brave Shift, since there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a bit disappointing that they outright abandoned the ultimate eye shtick in its base form.